The idea that the Romans stole Greek mythology is widely known to the general internet public at this point that it has become a meme. This notion is often justified by the Roman conquest of Greece. It is true that the Roman Empire started adapting a lot of elements from the Hellenic world, such as architecture, art, and even religion and language. But is it true that the Romans stole the Greek religion? Until what point is this true? This is what we're gonna analyze in this video. To understand what we're talking about, I will explain the origin of both civilizations. The Proto-Greek people arrived to the southern Balkans around the 3rd millennium BC, during the Bronze Age, until the Mycenaean civilization emerged. The Mycenaeans were distinguished from the Minoan Greeks and entered in contact with Anatolian people, who shared the common ancestor of the Indo European migrations. The Mycenaean civilization ends with the creation of the Greek city-states around the 8th century, entering the classical Greek period that gave birth to Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle, and idealized the past ages as the ages of heroes that inspire rivalries between the city-states and caused the setting for Assassin's Creed Odyssey. Even though linguists trace the origin of Celtic peoples and Romans to have a common ancestor, it is possible that the Hellenic influence touched this group earlier than we think. According to the foundation legend of Rome, the ancestors of Romulus and Remus, who founded Avalonga, when arrived to the Italian peninsula, were the defeated royalty of Troy, the ancient Greek city. After the founding of the city of Rome in 753 BC, the kingdom started expanding by conquering the pre-Indo European people such as the Etruscans, and having contact with the Greeks again in the south of the peninsula. Both the Romans and the Greeks shared polytheistic pantheons, which was dominated by the sky deity Jupiter and Zeus respectively. The first temples of Jove, Jupiter, were built by the Romans in the Etruscan style. This was not the first syncretism with non-Proto-Indo-Europeans though. The Greeks had already made connections with Egyptian religion, most notably the Zeus-Ammon connection. Both religions had a triad as the principal worship focus. In Rome it was made of Jupiter, Juno, and Minerva, in contrast of the male-only Greek triad of Zeus, Hades, and Poseidon. The Romans had a very disorganized religion during the Republic. It wasn't until the Punic Wars that Jupiter was widely worshipped by the people. At some point, the Roman conquest of Greece, the state-sponsored Roman religion finally decided to align their deities with the Greek equivalents, and the principal Roman triad was changed to Jupiter, Pluto, and Neptune. In the 1st century BC, the Romans had already contacted the Celts in Gaul. Even though the deities didn't align linguistically with the Roman ones, they shared themes, and the Celtic word for God is still related to the early Italic. During the conquest of Gaul and Britannia, the Romans encountered the Germanic peoples. The Roman historian Tacitus referred to the god Odin as Mercury, Thor as Hercules, and Tyr as Mars, even though Tyr is the one who shared the linguistic connection with the Proto-Indo-European sky deity, Deus, the same that Zeus and Jupiter came from. Odin came also from the Indo-European roots, the word guthom, which means to invoke. This word is also the origin for the word God in Germanic languages, including English. I believe that the idea of the Romans stealing Greek culture is a misconception. The Roman elite saw the Greek language, science, and architecture as more elevated, that led them to try to imitate some aspects of their civilization. But since the precedent of both civilizations is shared, I think that it is not right to say that the Romans just copied the Greek gods, because it's simply not the entire story. Roman religion took a different path after the conquest of Greece. Rome always used religion as a core part of its political system, and in so, religion was hierarchy and structure in contrast with the Greek civilization when it was more decentralized. The later Roman emperor shifted the focus from Jupiter to the Sol Invictus as the main and sometimes exclusive of importance for the Roman state. The Greek equivalent Helios was as well a later deity, but never reached the same status as the Sol Invictus. I will proceed to explain the connection between the sky deities of the Indo-European cultures. According to the Arnheimat hypothesis, the Proto-Indo-Europeans originated in the Caucasus, and because of the discovery of the wheel and the domestication of horses, were able to spread throughout Europe and West Asia. The first group that split into the Indo-Iranians were the Scythians. who contacted the Proto-Turkic and Mongolic people. This non-Proto-Indo-European group also contacted the first Anatolians, and through this connection they acquired the principal sky deity called Tengri, the origin of Tengrinism. This chart that I made shows the linguistic evolution of Deos in different languages. I didn't include all of them, only the most prominent examples. From Devos came Deva, a generic name for Hindu deity. For the Iranian religion, it is a little more complex. Deos was used by early Zoroastrianism to describe heaven and Deva to name the gods. However, when Zoroastrianism turned monotheistic, all the Deva gods were now considered demons or pagan deities. The word for god in Iranian, Khuda or Kudan, is instead related to the same Germanic root as shown in the chart. The Slavic mythology developed new deities from other lesser words such as Bgos, that means to provide, and turned into Proto-Indo-Iranian Bagas, provider or dispenser. This is also where the generic Slavic Bog, which means god, comes from. Armenian doesn't have a big connection with this deity, so they were not included. The Albanians had the sky deity Zoj, that eventually turned into the modern Zot, that is the word god in Albanian. Going back to the west, it is theorized that the Baltic people and the Anatolians had a greater connection because of other similarities. The Baltics have the word Devas, almost untouched from the ancient times, to change the meaning from the sky god to the word god in Baltic languages. The Anatolians were a very diverse group, and the most prominent languages were the Hittite and Luwian. The Hittites had the god Zeus, more related to the Greek Zeus, and the later Luwians worship Tiwaz, who coincidentally shares the name with the Proto-Germanic Tiwaz. The Anatolian languages were extinct, but the Turkic word for god is Tanri, that is related to the previously mentioned Tengrinism, that took its roots from the Proto-Indo-European religion. The Greek Zen is the antecessor of Zeus, and it is the same word that originated the word Theos in the ancient Greek and Otheos in modern Greek to refer to God. The most prominent Celtic deity related to Deus is Rheo, a Lusitanian deity discovered by the Romans during the conquest of Iberia. The word for God in Celtic languages, though, comes from the ancient root Dewo, and is present in today's modern languages as Dia in Irish and Deo in Welsh. The Latin god Jupiter is the composition of both words Deus Pater. The only other deity that had the same name composition was the Vedic sky god Deus Pitta. The concept of Deus Pater or Jovus Pater adapted to Roman Christianity with the word Deus in later and medieval Latin to refer almost exclusively to the Christian God, as it did in other languages as well. The word God in Roman languages are derivatives of the word Deus. One last curiosity is that in Tagalog and in most languages of the Philippines, the use of the word Dio because of the Spanish influence. This shows how influential Proto-Indo-European civilizations have been to the entirety of the human race. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please give me feedback if you liked it and anything you would like to add to the topic.